Good evening, depending on where you're joining from today. Thank you for joining our weekly digital transformation live stream. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And today's topic that we're going to cover today is how to become a better project manager of digital transformations. So we're really going to focus on the upskilling, the career development, and just sort of the vision of your role as a potential project manager on a digital transformation. So I'm really looking forward to today's topic and today's guest, who I'm going to introduce in just a moment. But before I introduce our guest, a couple logistical things. First of all, as I mentioned, this is a weekly live stream we host every week on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So wherever you're watching here today, you can find us every week, same time, same place. And we cover a host of topics related to digital transformation. And secondly, this interview becomes part of our weekly Transformation Ground Control podcast. So a week or every Wednesday, I should say, there's a new episode of Transformation Ground Control, and this recorded podcast that you're a part of here today will become part of that podcast episode once we edit it and add new content to it and whatnot. And that'll become part of the episode that gets released a week from tomorrow. So be sure to check that out if you don't already. That streams to LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter every Wednesday, the podcast Transformation Ground Control. You can also find it on audio podcast platforms throughout the world as well. And then last but not least, perhaps most importantly, is we encourage you to ask questions along the way. I've got a list of questions I'm going to start with our guests, but really at the end of the day, this is about you and your questions and what you want to cover. So I'd love to hear your chat and your questions as we get going here on the conversation. You can use the chat on whatever platform you're listening or watching here today. We'll keep an eye on that chat and we'll draw the questions here as we go. And speaking of chat, if you don't mind, as I'm introducing my guest, if you don't mind just dropping in the chat what city and country you're joining from here today. I'd love to hear where in the world you're joining. We generally get a global audience, so it's always nice to hear where everyone's joining. So love to hear what city and country you're joining from today. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and I'll ask our host here, or our guest here, when she introduces herself, maybe mention where she is. So speaking of our guest, again, the topic, how to become a better project manager of digital transformations. And I have the perfect guest for that topic, Adriana Girdler. So Adriana, thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you so much, Eric. Always a pleasure to be chatting with you and your audience. And I'm from Toronto, Canada.
Great. So we've got Toronto, we've got Denver, we've got already people mentioning here coming in from Greece, Toledo, Ohio, Daytona Beach, Florida, another from Denver, Colorado, New York City. Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Miami, Florida. So people from all over the world joining here today. Thank you for dropping in the chat where you are today.
Fantastic.
So this is your second time here on the show, Adriana. So I'm really excited to have you back.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me back. It was a great conversation the first time and such an engaging audience. So I'm really looking forward to this one as well.
As we were preparing for this conversation, I was going back to my notes to see, what did we cover last time? What were the major threads we covered? And I thought it's been a few months, but it's been almost a year. So time really does go by really fast. I had to go way back in my notes to find the conversation.
Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. So better late than never, I suppose, but great to have you back. And maybe just to start, for those that weren't part of that initial conversation you and I had, or if they just forgot, maybe tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, what you do, how you got in this role, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. I am the President and Chief Efficiency Officer of Cornerstone Dynamics, and we are a process and project management consulting firm, and that's what we specialize. So we focus on making internal ways working for organizations better, more effective, more efficient through project management principles and through efficiency principles. I'm also the founder and creator of Slay Project Management, which is a practical project management online program that really helps individuals to truly understand the framework of project management, to be successful, to execute projects from true start to true finish, and to do it in a practical way with all the templates and everything that you need to be successful. So that's who I am, and that's really what I do. And I help many large global organizations do what they do better.
Great. That's a very crisp and concise vision statement, sort of purpose statement of what it is you do. Very interesting. And if you don't already, check out Adriana's YouTube channel. She has a really good YouTube channel. And that's how I found you, actually, was on YouTube. And so anytime I want to know about project management, or I feel like I need to sharpen my saw as it relates to project management, or quite frankly, if I'm just looking for ideas on how to get more concise in my communication or bring up my energy level, I go to your channel. So be sure to check out Adriana Girdler's channel on YouTube too. It's really good.
Thank
And
you.
you recently passed 100,000 subscribers.
I'm at 140,000 now. Yeah. So
Nice.
the goal is 1 million. So please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Every subscriber. No, seriously, it's an amazing community. It's an amazing community. And really, I get very excited because I like giving value and to ensure that there's lessons learned from there, because there's so much that I think we get so busy on executing that we forget how we execute on things, which can make it either to be A, more work, or B, just have interactions that have a little more struggle with it. And it doesn't have to be with the people around us who we work with, a big part of our day.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So how did you get started in project management? I kind of know who you are today, but I didn't know you way back when you started out. How did your career progress, and how did you end up in a project management role?
So I think, like most project managers, I stumbled into the role. I did not wake up one day in university going, I want to be a project manager. I mean, I have multiple degrees. My first one is a history degree, so a Bachelor of Arts. And then my second is mechanical engineering. So it was really, I stumbled upon it. And I really got into it from the engineering end of things, because with engineering, it's very project oriented. And as a result of it being project oriented, it was just one of those things where I just automatically, because of the role, got into projects. And that's really how it came about. And then it was in my pharmaceutical years that it was suggested to me, hey, you should really get your PMP, which is your project management professional designation. And so I did that in the pharmaceutical years. And yeah, and I've been doing it, oh my goodness, like 25 plus years, which I know I'm supposed to say I don't look like it. Actually, everybody's supposed to say I don't look like it,
Yeah, we're all
but
going to say that.
thank you. And yeah, I mean, that's so vain, right? Such vanity coming into play. But yeah, no, I've been doing this for a really long time. And that's why I have the YouTube channel. That's why I have the practical project management course. And that's why, as a consulting firm, we get asked to help organizations do what they do better, because of the years of experience in the different industries that we've been in. So yeah, it was a
So
stumbling effect. I
do you
stumbled.
it's funny you say that, though, because I don't know of any project managers that really set out on that project management career path. They sort of stumbled upon it, and then they sort of reactively think, "Oh, wait, I should probably get certified in PMP or get some sort of skill set training."
Training, or yeah,
Is it
it's interesting because project management is a skill set. And I think too many people get thrown in the role and then they wonder why things fail. In fact, one of the big stats within project management is 60 to 70% of projects fail. So that's huge. Like when we take a
Mhm.
look and we take a step back from an organizational perspective, when we look at success rates, 60 to 70% failure is not acceptable. But yet for projects, we allow for that. And when you take a look at it, it's time, scope, and budget. It's like, did you go over budget? Did you not meet your timelines? And did you actually achieve what you needed to achieve? And that's 60 to 70%, let alone issues within the project and not getting the right quality, or having, not the right communication amongst your team, so that causes a lot of political issues, right? So
Mhm.
it's a very interesting dilemma, and I think too many people think anyone can do project management. And I think it's not to say that you can't do project management. You have to be taught how to do project management. There is a way to go about doing it, and I think sometimes that gets lost a lot in organizations, and then they wonder why they're not successful, or their initiatives or projects that they're putting in place are just not giving them what they needed. And it's usually because of how things were executed 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that 60 to 70% metric, that is projects of any sort. I mean, not just digital or technology projects, but any sort of like transformation or any sort of business change
Any type
initiative.
of project, it's a really high, it's really unfortunate because it shouldn't be that way. But yeah,
Mm.
it's like any, and then you add in certain types of industries or types of projects. And I'll be honest, you put in any type of digital project and you mix it with the regular corporate population who is not digital, or who doesn't understand software related stuff, and that even increases more so. There's a lot of
Mm.
issues, a lot of just rework, and it's a struggle. And I come across that a lot of times. We get asked to fix problems, like, oh my god, we have this project, can you help us fix it? And as I said, 9 times out of 10 is just how fundamentals weren't used, a lot of assumptions were made. And particularly when it comes to digital transformation, there's unrealistic expectations from senior executives to get things done quicker. There has to be a little more thought, energy, and effort to look through it. And then the biggest problem too are business requirements. There's this disconnect that I see all the time between software related folk and regular office related folk. And what I mean by that is like someone who's in the finance department doesn't really understand how software engineers work, let's say, or if you're in that digital mindset, like, okay, I have to bring to all these things to fruition. And there's a little bit of disconnect with methodology. And then that's where I find everything falls apart. So it's like, that's why you have to really take a look at projects from true start to true finish, from the point of initiation. And yes, you can still implement an agile methodology, waterfall methodology, like whatever hybrid methodology, whatever methodology you're going to use, but there's still this framework that you have to look at and apply. And remember, it's about people. And that's what gets forgotten. It's all about the task and about getting it done. And we have to forget it's about communication. It's about bringing people along the journey and ensuring that you've crossed your T's, dotted your I's. And that's through risk management and change management and things of that nature, which gets lost in a lot of digital transformation projects.
Yeah, for sure. And I've noticed, maybe it's just the timing of when I've noticed it. I don't know that your content has necessarily changed that much, but I have noticed in your content on your YouTube channel lately, there seems to be more conversation around change management and the intersection of project management and change management, which I think is really fascinating and really important for people to understand. So kudos to you for not just focusing on sort of the PMP-ish sort of stuff, but also looking more globally at what are all these different moving parts and pieces that are so important to make any sort of project successful.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up, because I think sometimes we forget, because I'm also a master black belt Lean Six Sigma. So you have to understand, like, I take the efficiency and effectiveness aspect and I try to streamline and make everything as efficient and effective as possible. And it doesn't matter what it is that I do it with. So, and it's whether it's that genre, whether it's project management genre, it's fine to have your book knowledge, right? Your book smart, like, oh, hey, I know all of that. But it's the practicality of things that I think gets lost. And it's the A, have you done enough to have experience? And B, do you understand people? I think that's the biggest thing I see as a disconnect in a lot of projects is, do you understand how to motivate people? Do you know how to communicate? That's where that change management piece comes in. So it's really important that you integrate that into your project planning for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So since you and I are both vain, we share that characteristic here. I have to share this comment here from Brandon on YouTube. Brandon on YouTube says, "I just fell into project management 4 months ago. You've been huge motivators." So we have a mutual fan here with Brandon. So thanks for being here, Brandon.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, it's sometimes it's just those small little pieces of golden nuggets of years of experience, right, Eric? Like, it's just, we have these years of experience, we've seen things, and it's like, don't reinvent the wheel, learn from others as much as you can. And what I always like to say is, do your best work every day, whatever that may be. And then, you've done your due diligence, but always come from it from a lens of looking at things holistically, look at the horizon and bring everything together in your decision making. But when we get believe me, I get into it too when I'm under the gun, right? Pressure, looking at one thing, and we're forgetting that there's other things outside of our peripheral vision, which has impact on what we're doing. And if we're wondering why I did this, I executed it, why didn't it work well, or how come it wasn't received that well, is because we forgot to take a step back and we forgot to take a look at the peripheral vision. And that becomes really important in digital transformation type projects, because I promise you, there are so many people who are impacted by these types of digital transformation projects that they will make up their own story. And you need to nip those in the bud in order to ensure successful implementation, because you can have great implementation, but if people haven't bought into it, it will fail afterwards, after the go live. It's quite fascinating, and you will struggle, and you're wondering, this is so simple, it makes sense, but why is it that people aren't buying into it? Because you need to do that work during the project stage and get everyone into the framework of it.
Yeah, and you're sort of touching on call it the art of project management versus the science of it, because
I'm so sorry. I got to do a shout out. Stuart's on the call. Stuart, I'm giving away. He's another YouTuber, by the way. Great channel to check out. So, oh my gosh, Stuart, I just saw your name. So, hello. It's a community. It's a community. Anyway.
He is, yeah. I've seen his name, and I am familiar with Stuart from his engagement on the platform.
Yeah, he has really good stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess when you think back, so you've been doing this 25 years, you think back to when you first stumbled in accidentally into project management. Are there a couple key nuggets of things that you really wish you knew back then that you know now? If you could go back and do it all over, you might do it a little bit differently, or upskill a little bit faster in a couple key areas.
Yeah, you know what? I would have really learned facilitation first. I don't think people recognize that when you're a project manager, your secondary role is a facilitator. And there's two types of facilitation that you do. There's meeting facilitation. So you got to be really good at meetings. Why? Guess what? Most of your projects are all about meetings. Like that's how you execute on projects. Now, it's not a meeting of an update. It's a meeting on, okay, what are resolutions? Where this, where are we from a perspective of what's going on? Have we come up? Is there an approval, et cetera? So you have to really learn how to control meetings, because I don't know about some of you, it's really easy for some meetings to get out of control. And then all of a sudden you're spending a couple of meetings to address an issue that if you just understood how to facilitate a meeting well and establish those rules and boundaries, which you can do immediately at the beginning of a meeting to really nip anyone who's trying to, has a hidden agenda and wants to take the agenda off track. You can kind of like nip those things in the bud and keep things on track. That's your job. Secondary thing is you are a brainstorming facilitator, and that's very specific. So, I think that's something that, again, in my earlier years, I really thought, oh, here I got a project. I did all the necessary documentation. I didn't realize it was a baseline. Here's my project plan. Let's execute it and we're done. And it's like,
Right.
no, that is your baseline project plan. Baseline. Baseline means it will change. Baseline means as of today, with the information I have and all the due diligence I've done in advance of, I now have this baseline of what I think is going to have happen. As we start to execute, things pop up on the surface and we realize, oh my goodness, we can't do this. We can't do that. We have to change this. There's a supply chain issue, so I can't bring that in time. I got to shift schedules, or I got to change direction, or whatever it may be, in order to keep my scope, time, and budget. So that becomes really interesting. And that's where you have to, and this is where I think a lot of project managers, they don't do it. It's your job as a project manager to fill in the gaps and make sure the strategy of the organization and ultimately your project comes to fruition from a strategic standpoint. It is not, your subject matter experts are great at executing tactically, and they will do it. But you need to bring in the overarching umbrella of strategy, and you have to help facilitate sessions. So there are times, like for example, for digital transformation, what's the biggest disconnect is between the business requirements and software engineers who are developing and designing. And a lot of times what the software engineers will say, and I get their perspective, is like, hey, business, tell me what I need. And the business is like, well, I freaking know nothing about software. I don't know what I need. Help me out. Tell me what I need. And so what happens is business thinks they give what they need. Digital software is like, oh, great, I'm just going to build to what you tell me to build. And then all of a sudden, the business is like, whoa, wait a minute. I need more than that. Didn't you think about it? Help me out. So there's this disconnect, because a business really doesn't know what they need. They have ideas and concept. It's supposed to be this collaborative framework. So as a project manager, you have to go in and you have to brainstorm these sessions. You have to brainstorm these requirements. You have to help both sides of the group to make sure that everything is really being looked at. That is what happens in really good projects. And then you do that throughout the life cycle of the project, because there may be other things that pop up that you have to brainstorm solutions for. So learning how to facilitate, oh my goodness, freaking huge. Sorry, I shouldn't, that's like my swear word, which I would actually, I swear a lot more than that. But anyway,
I was going to say that's your
that's my
PG version.
clean, that's my PG version.
No, that's funny. Well, you're touching on though a couple things. One is that you can be a project manager and check all the things on your checklist and hit all your milestones, and on paper you could have a quote unquote successful project. But if you don't do the things you just described, a couple things you described facilitation, and then a moment ago you described sort of getting the buy-in of the organization. Those are two art, it's more of the art of project management versus the science of project management, which is a topic I'm really fascinated by, because I think a lot of project managers tend to focus on the science of project management. Did I hit a milestone? Did I complete a task? Yes or no? But they don't necessarily understand the shades of gray of, yeah, we completed this milestone, but we didn't do it very well, or we didn't do it well enough to really say that we can declare victory. And knowing that is like, how do you do that as a project manager? You know what I mean? Like, as far as knowing that, yeah, technically we completed this task, but we really didn't.
So that's experience, right? And then when you said to me, what do I wish I knew back when, that I know now. And that would be to understand more about team dynamics, because again, like where I am today, believe you me, is a lot of trial and error, a lot of trial and error. So, why now when I go into projects, I really am succinct. I can go very quickly. I can organize. In fact, people tell me I make it look easy all the time. I'm like, okay, just recognize I have over 25 plus years of experience doing this.
Right.
So I see patterns. That's my engineering mind. So I see patterns. So I know what to put in place for these patterns. I've seen this stuff. It just so happens to have a different, deliverable. It just so happens to have different departments, but I promise you the patterns are still there. So if I understood a little bit more of team dynamics psychology, which by the way, I love, I actually read now a lot of psychology, because again, I could have the perfect framework, all the right documents, but if I still have a team member who's not delivering, again, project managers, no one reports into you. Nobody reports into you. Yet you have to report into all these steering committees, senior executives, ensure things are getting right. So how do you motivate people who have other activities on their plate as well, not 100% of your project? And how do you get them motivated? And so that's where I would really talk to the psychology, the understanding, emotional intelligence, picking up on cues. I've gotten more information through body language than I do through vocally. And it's something where with virtual meetings and global teams, it's sometimes difficult when everyone has their camera off.
Right.
Right. So
that's good. Yeah. So little things like that, like turn your camera on.
Yeah. And again, there's people who are like, no.
Yes.
I don't have to. It's my choice. My background is messy. I'm like,
Right.
well, and it's an interesting dilemma for organizations, because I do give people choice. I explain why I'm asking. So that's probably the big thing, is I do a lot of whys. Here's why we're doing it. Here's why I'm asking you to do this. And then people kind of get it. I go, look, I get more information from you with your camera on. I can see whether you're agreeing with me or disagreeing with me, but I'm letting you know, for all the cameras off and everyone's going, yes, Adriana, yes, Adriana, yes, Adriana, then I know there's some of you who have no clue what you're saying yes to. Like, I know that, because I then have to do these extra meetings after the fact. And I'm like, seriously, I'm an efficiency person. Like, that's a waste. We deem that a waste in the system.
Right.
And now like now I have to do, seriously. So, for smaller core teams, great. I find the larger teams, there's a little more challenge with it. And I feel for organizations, because, in all honesty, when you're in the office, do you like hide in the corner and turn your back to everyone because you don't want to show your face when you're around a boardroom table for a meeting? Do you do that?
Yeah, no.
Yeah. No. So why is that acceptable virtually?
Right.
Still a meeting. It's just that it's a tool and a technology we're using. It's fascinating. If you're doing work in a meeting, then you shouldn't be at that meeting.
Right. Well, I was just going to say, I think that's why people are multitasking.
Yeah.
So that's why they don't want to be on camera necessarily.
Yeah. Well, and if that's the case, be honest and, say to the facilitator, which is why I talk about facilitation. You have to know who to invite, what exactly you're doing, what's your agenda, because if people know that your meetings are productive and have a purpose, they will join and they will turn the camera on and they will do what they need to do. If they feel it's just the same old, like a status update meeting, or we're just going through the motions of stuff, then they won't turn it on. So there's something where you have to look to yourself and say, how much am I contributing to this issue as well? So, I always say, as I said earlier on, always put your best foot forward, do the best job you can for the day. But on the flip side of that as well, you have to always ask yourself too, am I part of creating what the issue is right now? Let's say with like meetings and everyone having their camera off, right? Is it a culture thing? Is it just people on my team? Do I have to have some one-on-ones? And this would probably be going back to your original question. I wish when I was younger, I had the courage and knew how to properly address challenges, because I think there was a part of me that would ignore challenges. And I see that a lot in the younger generation, is they don't know how to address challenges. And instead of addressing them and learning it, because it's a skill set, a very powerful skill set for all relationships, professional relationships, personal relationships, they walk away. Right? They walk away or they don't address it. So it's very interesting. So, again, that's that whole psychology. How can I properly, respectfully, and professionally, Eric, challenge you and address a difficult situation because you're not delivering? That's not
Right.
easy to do when you're young and you have someone who's older than you, who's a subject matter expert on your team,
Right.
right? So, but there's a way to go about doing it.
Yeah.
Way to go about doing it.
Yeah. Well, and back to what you were saying about facilitation and sort of understanding and asking questions, those sorts of things can oftentimes draw out sources of misalignment, or it builds credibility too by asking those questions and
Yeah.
facilitating well. Here's a question from, well, first of all, let me start with a comment before I get to the question, but this is from YouTube. This comment here, that is, this energy from this live is infectious. So thank you for being so infectious, Adriana.
Yay.
I'm going to give
Yeah,
you most of the
seriously.
credit. I'm going to give you 90% of the credit for that, because your energy level is definitely higher than mine.
I love life. No, like seriously, I love what I do. And I love being able, thank you for listening, by the way, everybody. So I love that everyone's here and they want to learn. So I'm a willing teacher.
Right. Well, this is great. And then Laik has a really interesting question that I think might be interesting to hear your thoughts here. And I'll have to hide it to get through the whole question. But he says, as an external project management team, how do you ensure that you're aware of and manage the highest paid person's opinion effect? Navigating these situations can be quite political, even for internal teams. How do you handle that, so the people that have
Yeah.
the most
So
impact in an organization?
it's interesting. It's a really good question. Can you put that question back up just so I can
Yes. Yeah. Let me
see
get
it
back to it here.
again, because there's a
There it
couple
is.
of things I want to unpack here. So, the highest paid person opinion. So, we have to look at that from two angles. Okay. Is it an executive team member, right? Like a VP, a president, or is it a subject matter expert who happens to be the highest paid subject matter expert who has a lot of knowledge? So, there's a couple of things I want to deal with here. Let's unpack the easier one, which is an executive. All right. Our job in an organization is to present as project, this is my personal opinion, the pros and cons and projects, to present the issues, to make sure everything is aligned with strategy, and to ensure that we get the deliverable through. And I'm going to do it collectively and collaboratively with my team and ensure that we all buy into what we need to do, and to do it in a way where we all have fun as well, right? We all have this good collaboration amongst us so that we can ensure a successful project. That's my job. And my job is to report up to the executive team. So if I have an executive team member and their job is about strategy, vision, to ensure that the organization moves forward. So if they have very specific things that they want to have executed, I do have to listen to that, right? And you have to understand that they're steering the ship. Okay, they're
Right.
steering the ship. They get paid to steer the ship. Okay, you may not agree with where they're going. Okay, you
Right.
don't have to. It's not your job to agree, right? But the thing is, they have more insight than maybe that you realize. So what I like to do, and this is what's really important with project management, is it's really critical with the senior executives up front to get all your buy-in, to get all of the ins and outs, the expectations, your scope template and your charter, and get sign off. I literally make people sign my document.
Mm.
And I do a priority matrix as well, which again is with the senior executives to say, okay, what is my full constraint on this project, scope, time, or budget? And again, I can't have two constraints. I can only have one. What can what is it that I have to optimize? And what I mean by that is, look at, I want you to keep it, but if you have to, flex with it, then by all means, I'm okay if you flex with that. So it would be the remaining two. And then what do I have complete flexibility with? Because I need to be able to, on the turn of a dime, be able to do stuff. And so when I do that all up front, and this is, again, the difference with really good project managers is there's a strategy, right? I get that all up front. I get sign off. My steering committee is made before I actually get my team members together, by the way. That's really important because there's all this approval and buy-in. And if you do all of this up front, I'm not going to get midway a senior executive saying, I want you to change this and I want you to do that. Why? Because we've already come up with all the agreements. But if I still have a senior executive who does that, guess what? I have a change control form, not a change management. This is change control. I have a
Mm.
simple one pager that's in my Slate project management program that I use. And that becomes, it's not only a great tool, but it's a resource, because a lot of times I will then give that to the executive to have them fill out, or I'll sit down with the executive and we'll fill it out together. And a lot of those simple questions, it's like, What is it that you want done? Why you want done? How much is it going to be? All of a sudden you start asking all these questions, and they're kind of like 9 times out of 10, it's not that important. That's not that
Right.
important, because you're making them think. You're making
Right.
them think. My job is not to tell them yes or no. My job is to say, let's pull it out so we understand the impact it is to the project, because my job is the overarching timeline of the project, the whole gamut of the project. He or she does not know the details like I do. That's my job. So
Right.
now I'm just sharing with them, like, you need to understand, let's pull this out. Okay, what are you willing to give up? Because you can't have it all, right? You're doing this in the middle of the project. So again, so that's the technique that I use to really nip things in the bud before they come to fruition. I have my scope and my charter, which I've already got approval from. So I bring it back, like, why you want to do it? Because we've already said we were going to do A, and now you want to change and do B. So, that becomes the easier one to manage because you do the right process and framework. So I hope I've answered it from that perspective. Now there's number 2. What do you
Well, that's
do?
well, I was just going to say, just to add to what you said, I think you had some really important points, which is you use the words you can't have it all. And you
Yeah.
also talked about how you're really enforcing sort of a buy-in ownership sign-off process that makes this not about you, the project manager. You, the project manager, are responsible for these decisions, because you're not. I think what you're saying is that you can't have it all. There's always going to be trade-offs in any decision you make in a project. And B, you, the project manager, should not necessarily be the ones making those decisions. You should be facilitating the decisions and kind of forcing the ownership of the rest of the organization. And I think
Yes.
that's a lot of us as project managers think, oh, okay, I have to take these unrealistic expectations that make no sense, that's impossible to deliver, but I have to figure out a way to go deliver that, instead of saying,
Which
hey, let's figure out what the trade-offs are here and go with that instead.
That's a really good call out. And I think a lot of project managers do that. Oh my God, I now have to deliver on this. Why are you taking that on?
Right.
You don't get paid to take that on. You
Right.
don't. You don't get paid. Believe you me, those executives, they're getting paid big bucks for a very good reason. And you have them on the steering committee for a very good reason. That's why I established that in the beginning. And
Yeah.
it's not an option. You
Right.
can't have it as an option. So by doing that, it diffuses a lot, and there's techniques to go about it. And I actually talk about this on my YouTube channel too. So if everyone is like, oh my goodness, with whatever I'm saying, just go to my YouTube channel, look at it. I practice what I preach. Sometimes I feel like I'm a broken record. It's the same thing over and over again. All right, but I do want to finish the question, because I said there's 2 prongs to this. There's the executive side of it, and I said the executive was easier. People are probably going, really, dealing with executives is easier? I'm going to go, yeah, when you set it up properly, like what I said, it's really easy. I've nipped so many executives wanting to change things because they had I call it the whim, but it's, they had an idea. That's their role, right? They have ideas and they're visionaries for a reason. That's why they're in those roles.
Right.
Now, what do you do when you have the highest paid subject matter expert on your team who's saying, wait a minute? Now, you have to understand a couple of things. I'm going to make some assumptions. Highest paid team member usually is someone who has a lot of experience.
Mhm.
Usually has a lot of experience. When you're getting paid a lot more money than someone else, let's say if we're doing the same job, it's because they have a lot more experience. They know how to weather the storm. They've been through storms, and if they have to, they can come to the table and know how to deal with that. Those who kind of get paid less, yeah, they can execute in good weather, let's say, but when it comes to the storm, do they know how to do it, right? You get paid for the full gamut. We hope, like insurance, you don't have to use it,
Right.
right? But that's a difference. So that subject matter expert has a lot of pull and a lot of weight, actually, in a
Yeah.
project team. And so, when they start saying, no, we shouldn't do this, there's a couple of things that need to happen. This is where your facilitation skills really come into play. This is where you stop everybody and you go, okay, wait a minute. Anna's the highest paid subject matter expert. Anna, I'm hearing you. You do not want to move forward with this. Let's talk it out. Okay. What's going on in your experience that you feel this way? Because she obviously has a really good idea as to what's going on. Number 2 is, after you that's where the psychology, that's where the people skills come into play. Number 2 is, I'd probably, once we've discussed it, talked about collectively what we have to do, and I probably have to facilitate a brainstorming session around whatever it is that we're looking to change or do. Right? That's what I said, facilitation. So a lot of what I do as a project manager is to make sure that we're all being heard, listen, the really good ideas are coming out that's going to ensure the deliverable of the project. So that's how I would deal with that one question with the 2 different streams that pop up
Right.
with it.
That's great advice, and it's a great question too. And it's good to recognize that, because I think what we're touching on here is sort of the the internal political forces that can derail a project if you don't know how to manage them, if you don't know how to push back tactfully and effectively on some of that, some of those internal dynamics, because those can really take over a project. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it too, where those internal politics and dynamics and misalignments and unrealistic expectations, all that stuff gets shoved onto the project manager, and then the
Oh my
project
God.
manager is in a no-win situation where no matter how good you are, you're not going to win in that situation if you don't do the things you just described as far as facilitating and overcoming those.
At 100%, project management is not about executing on tactical tasks. It's part of it, but it's not project management. Project management is understanding strategically everything that you need to do from a scope, time, and budget perspective to bring a deliverable to fruition with a group of people, and to do it in a way that's collaborative and respectful, and to bring about the idea so you do it in good quality. So when you take it from that perspective, you look at things differently. So I'm collaborative. So let me put this in place. I'm the project manager. At some point, like, I'm collaborative in nature with what I do, but I also let the team know at some point I have to say, stop, this is what we're doing. Like, at some point, I also have to come in and be a decision maker. Right. And if there's something that I can't be a decision maker with, or really it's not a decision for the team or myself to make, it's the job of the steering committee, who that's their role in projects, is to remove roadblocks, to do approvals, and to ensure the strategy of the organization is being met within your project. Okay. You need to understand that. Then that is what becomes, I'll escalate it. We first try to resolve things with our team always. If I can't resolve it with the team, that's when it gets escalated. And I usually tell the team, hey guys, you know what? If we can't resolve this, it's all good. Don't worry about it. Let's pull out what we need to have. Let's have the senior executives who get paid the big bucks. Let them make the decision. And believe me, I document it all too, right? Because I've had that happen where I've had a senior executive, why did you do this? And I'm like, whoa. Well, first of all, I document a lot. That's another very important skill set.
Right.
I document it, and then I share, and I have the paper trail. So it's now to a point where I do projects and I just say, guys, would you want to see it? Because of the paper trail. And they're like,
Right.
no, we know you have it, Adriana. We know you have it, right? Because I pull it out so many times, and they're like, ugh. So it's like, be careful.
Right.
It's getting documented. And I say it, okay, guys, answer. What's the answer? Because it's getting documented, right? And those are just techniques, because people forget, right? People forget, and it's just your job to remind
And when
people.
things get tough, and these projects are always difficult, if you're a project manager on a project, chances are it's a complex project. It's difficult. It involves change. A certain subset of the organization may not necessarily want to go through the change. So it becomes easy to start pointing fingers and looking for a scapegoat. And I hate to say it, but as a PM, like, part of your job has to be to CYA. Like, how do you, everything you just described, even though it's not the intent of what you just described, it is a CYA, or cover your ass mechanism, which is,
Absolutely.
no, I didn't make this decision. This wasn't my decision. This was your decision, the business's decision, and we are executing on that. And if we need to change it, then this is what it looks like. But you know what I mean? Like, you're sort of taking that bullseye off you personally and making it about the organization.
Well, yeah, I mean, you take away the emotional charge is what. So, like, when you prep things properly, you document things properly, and you follow a really good framework, and you follow the process, as I said, within my program, Slay Project Management, that then allows for you to have everything that you need at the proper place, time, so you can go in, and you're right, cover your
Arse. Those that are
so
offended easily, we'll change the word for
yeah,
those that are offended.
yeah. So, okay, because here's something what I don't think people realize. Work is work, right? We have great rapport and relationships with people, but my colleagues, they're not my family. They don't love me unconditionally. They have their issues. They have egos. They come to the table with their own hidden agenda. So, you know what? If I were to go in and think that everybody has my back, because that's how it is, that's not the reality of life. I mean, you can take a look even at our personal social media. Like, there's trolls who troll and they don't have your, like, come on. Like, so you have to be smart about things. That's all. Like, you have to be smart. And that's just over the years of doing, like, yeah, making sure that you document, cross the T's, dot the I's, as I like to say, so that you can just, again, I don't get upset. I don't get emotionally charged. I used to when I was younger. I took it very personally, very personally. As I get older, I have so much more patience and I don't take things personally anymore.
Right.
It's like, because I have it documented, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Remember when we agreed to all of this? What changed? And then you start to, through psychology, you start to do the deeper dive and the dig to figure things out. And then, again, that's what distinguishes really great project managers too, because project managers will start to think like executives and they start to think of it from a standpoint of the strategy. And let's go back to the strategy. If we want to decide to change something midway through, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, if it's thought through properly. And all of the things that need to be taken into consideration are taken into consideration. You can't change scope on me and add more stuff and expect me to meet the same timeline and the same budget. Ain't freaking gonna happen.
Right.
And you know what? I'll tell an executive that. So you tell me magically, where's my wand? Because I want that for now the lotto 40 lotto max number, because I'm going to be awesome. I'm going to, so like, where is it? Like, because you can't, anyone who understands, they know that that's not possible, right? Like there's constraints. So yeah. So anyway, I feel like I'm digressing.
No, this is important stuff. And I would also argue that, maybe organizations you work with don't always love you unconditionally, but I think the audience here loves you unconditionally. We'll have them comment on. Do we love Adriana unconditionally? So we'll have the audience chime in here.
My family loves me unconditionally. My dog loves me unconditionally.
And that's about it.
That's about it.
That's funny. Well, a couple of audience comments here. Hello, this is from Peter on YouTube. Hello from North Carolina. This is exactly what I've been waiting for. Great episode so far. So thank you for that, Peter. This is from Toyin from YouTube. Hello from New Jersey. Thank you, Eric, for all you do. Your channel is my go-to anytime of ERP-related projects.
You do great work, Eric. Absolutely.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So do you, by the way.
Thank you.
And then this is just really interesting. These are more comments that I think are worth getting to. This is from Prachi on LinkedIn. Aspiring project manager. These sessions help me a lot to understand practical problems and handle scenarios based on experience. And I think that's a great summary of what you just described for us, Adriana, which is a very complex situation that we as PMs oftentimes find ourselves in. And hopefully that helps in that. Here's a question I have to get to because it's going to be a trigger for a lot of the audience and maybe you, Adriana. It's definitely going to be a trigger for me. Okay. And this is from Twana on LinkedIn. Has the Agile methodology decreased the failure of waterfall projects?
Okay. So I'm going to say stop comparing Agile and waterfall. Stop it.
Ooh, I like it.
Stop it. Because some projects like construction must do waterfall. Okay, Adriana, what are you talking about?
That's not cool. Waterfall's not cool anymore.
I can't build a framework. I can't build a frame of a house on no foundation.
Right.
That's waterfall. So guess what I have to do? I have to dig my hole first. And I cannot proceed until I then get the frame, like the foundation done. Then after the foundation is the only time I can start framing. Now, inside the house, once the framing is all done, there may be some portions of my activities I can do in an Agile methodology way, right?
Right.
But this is what the problem is. I don't know why people are pitting against the two. They're not. It's dependent. Honestly, when I find that, it's like someone wants to say, "Oh, we're better." It's not about being better. Be smart. Think of what tools, as a project manager, you take a step back. I use Agile, I use Waterfall, I use Hybrid. I use whatever I need to use to make sure that the project and the people on the project are successful. That's my goal. That's what project managers need to think about is I have to make sure this deliverable is successful. So what methodology should I use? Now, like everything, one of the things I find to be very difficult for Agile methodology, and just so you know, I'm a Master Black Belt Lean Six Sigma, and my world too, a lot of people don't get it. A lot of people don't get this world. And it's a paradigm shift because it's a different way of thinking. Agile is a completely different way of thinking, and most organizations are not set up to support a true Agile methodology. So they do hybrid methodologies. So that's why don't pit it. Don't say one is better. It's dependent upon who you are as an individual, your organization, the support the organization does, and the type of project that you're doing. That's all. That's all.
Right.
Agile, yes, has its benefits 100%, and for certain projects, absolute must. Just like waterfall has its benefits, and for some projects are an absolute must. And then there's
Right.
hybrid methodology. I'm seeing a lot of people doing hybrid methodology. So don't think of it from that perspective. As a project manager, you need to understand multiple methodologies. That's why I say, and this is where project managers, don't forget, agile waterfall is how you execute, not plan,
Mhm. Right.
execute. And in projects, there's initiation, planning, execution, monitor, control, closing. So you still have this initiation and planning that still needs to be done, still needs to be looked at. This is where you look at strategically. Because if I was looking at the project, I'd probably, okay, I'm totally, that's a personal opinion. So I'm going to stop it. Um, some project managers start the project at execution phase, and that's where they get in trouble. That's all.
Mhm.
So you
Yeah.
have to understand there's a framework, there's a strategy. There's a strategy to it, right? And
Yeah.
again, pick whatever methodology is going to work for you. So I hope that that's an answer that nobody was expecting.
Yeah, I love that answer. I mean, it's sort of like knowing you've got this toolkit or a
Yeah.
toolbox, and you just have to know which tools to bring in at what time. And one size does not fit all. And I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, I know a lot of man, can you imagine doing construction projects in an agile way?
Yeah, like the plumber shows up on day one, he's ready to build the plumbing, but
Shit.
you've got no
You'd be
foundation.
total failure, right?
Yeah, but is that going to deliver you a house with plumbing faster if the plumber shows up on day one? Probably
No.
not.
No, 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 right? So it's
Yeah,
interesting. And anyway, so again, it's really dependent upon the project.
yeah, yeah. Great
Yeah.
point. Great question too. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah,
Um,
it is a great question because I think a lot of people don't know the answer to it, and there really is no answer. It's a tool in your toolbox,
right, right.
which I like that.
Yeah, feel free to borrow it. You can steal that from me,
I totally will.
free of charge. So this is from. I'm going to shorten his name just because I don't know how to pronounce it, and I apologize. But I'll call him Singh. This is from Singh on LinkedIn, and it's more of a comment, but I think it's a really good sort of recap or a summary reinforcement of something you said, Adriana. Distributing responsibility does tend to bring expectations down to earth. It allows for Eric's favorite quote, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" to flourish, as realizing you can't have it all forces stakeholders to add more thought to what they, let me hide it so I can show it or read it. Realizing it forces stakeholders to add more thought to what they consider to be a requirement. So it is a matter of, as a project manager, I think what Singh's getting at here is your job is to really understand, what the vision and what the goals of the organization are and how this project can align with that, and making sure that you stay in sync and that you do reinforce and understand and reinforce what it is you want to be when you grow up as an organization. But that's not on you, the project manager, to define yourself as a project leader. And I think a lot of us feel like maybe we should have to do that. But it gets back to that point of getting that business involvement.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's a technique to it. It's in the framework, right? And so this is why when I get my marching orders for a project, I don't do a kickoff. It's not the first thing that I do. I actually do preparatory work. I do my initiation stuff. I build my steering committee. I get a confirmation for the priority matrix. I understand what are we going to be delivering. I prep my charter. I baseline stuff. I then do my kickoff and I present to my team a package. Hey guys, here's a baseline of what we have to do. And my kickoff meetings are not 1 hour. Sometimes they're a full day. It's like a workshop facilitation. And I bring them, hey, let's get all into agreement. Are we in agreement with what has to go here? Now you tell me, what do you feel on your subject matter expertise? Because I've already, figured out who I need to have on there. Have we missed anybody? What is it that you feel that you're going to deliver on? And now I want you to build out your plan on how you're going to deliver on this. That's by an
Right.
accountability from day one makes a huge, huge difference. Makes a
Yeah.
huge difference. And it's quite powerful. And when that's why I love starting projects versus coming in and fixing projects.
Yeah.
Fixing projects midway is a different beast and it's harder. It can be done, but it's not the same as when you can start everything from, I call it the design stage, right? Like you're designing everything and you're getting it all going. But
You
yeah.
can do it right from the start versus
Oh
having
my
to
goodness.
fix everything that's broken.
That's efficiency in me. Oh my God, I can actually do this right once, first time.
Yeah, I can imagine that
Right?
driving you crazy, the project cleanups, even though I'm sure you're good at it. I
It
imagine
does. It does. It's like, oh, why? Why do I have
if
to
you
clean
just
this
would have
up?
done A, B, and C, we wouldn't be in
You
this
wouldn't
mess.
have to do no, and that's why. And interesting, that's why I created Slay, because I saw the pattern over and over and over again. It's like, oh my goodness, that's why 67% of projects fail. They don't understand the framework. They understand a methodology. They don't understand the full framework on how to truly execute. And I'm telling you, there is stuff that people don't think about. It's that holistic perspective, start to finish, and it's not just the tactical stuff. So,
Right.
yeah.
Here's a question from YouTube that's somewhat specific, but it touches on an underlying broader issue here. And the question here is, I work in post-merger integration. Any advice for specific to the merger integration space? Oftentimes teams are emotional and burned out. So I guess in general, whether it's a merger integration or any sort of project that involves a lot of change and people are burned out, which is a real thing that you and I have both seen a lot. How do you deal with that as a project manager? You've got a team that's going through a lot since COVID and all these changes that are happening in the organization. Now you're throwing in new technology or a merger integration or whatever. How do you ensure that how do you manage a team that is on the verge of burnout?
Well, it's interesting because I think for me, I had the advantage of being a consultant. And what I mean by that is I talk to all the senior executives. They're the ones who usually bring me in. And so I understand what's happening strategically. So I already have all these conversations with them, like, why are you doing all this stuff? Blah, 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 blah. Because it goes beyond projects at this point. This is really of, what are you trying to achieve as an organization? Where's your priority list of the things that you need to achieve? Because not everything can be number one and you can't accomplish it all. So this is now going beyond projects. This is now strategy of senior executives. And I see this is another problem because I do strategy work with senior executives too. And this is where they're like, well, just, no, we have to get all this stuff done. But they don't understand that, again, they have to set things up. They have to prioritize. They should be putting things in a priority matrix as well, so they can understand, can our resources do this? Because you're right. Just because you finish it doesn't mean it's a good outcome. Because if people are burnt out and they feel overwhelmed and they're just getting the necessary things done, your output of what you just finished is half-assed. And then they wonder why it didn't go over well. Well, what's your goal? Is it the quality? Of course, everybody says that, but yet they don't want to put the energy and effort or reevaluate or rejig or take things off the plate, put it in for a later date, because that takes courage to stand up and saying, hey, we can't do all of this. But, we know inherently we can't do all of it. So I don't sometimes I do challenge senior executives, like, why do you think you can do all of this? And a lot of times they just don't understand the amount of energy, work, and effort. And this is where it becomes for project managers and a really good PMO to be at that level with the senior executive to share with them, like, look, there's only X amount of hours in a day. There's only X amount of resources that we have. If you really want to do all this stuff, then we need to hire externally. Consultants, temporary workers, contractors, in order to get this stuff done. So again, that's why really understanding priority matrices, what is our constraint, what do we want to optimize, and what are we really flexible with, is actually a technique that you can use not just for projects, but you can use it with everything. Like, honestly, like when you're everything, you should be looking at the lens of work from a priority matrix perspective. And even when you get asked to put more on your plate, like, let's say you're reporting to a manager and you have multiple things going on, you get asked to do more. Yeah, sure. Okay, can I do this? But then it may impact something else. So you just have to renegotiate that. Like, let's just take a look at my workload overall. Happy to take that on, but you have to understand my timeline may be impacted. So I may need to shift this project that you want done in 3 weeks. I may now need to have 6 weeks in order to get it done because you want me to do this new thing that you're asking me to do today. So it becomes a skill set and a technique that really, for me, is just natural. And if someone can, adopt that and really know how to work it, it will make your life really easy. Because look at you, just because you're dumped on doesn't mean you go, okay.
Yeah, exactly. And just
No.
accept it.
But professionally, but listen, you don't have to be an ass. be professional, be respectful, and just show the strategy behind your thought. That will get you so much kudos. People will remember that. And then that's how you, if you choose to and want to rise the ranks, that's one of the ways you do it, by showing your strategic mindset. By the way, with artificial intelligence, we all have to become more strategic in our mindset, because becoming really good tactically, AI is going to take care of that. It's how good are we with creativity, with leading people, and understanding the strategy in order to get things done, because things are going to happen faster too, because AI is really fast. So just as a little FYI, this is another topic I'm getting into, because I'm seeing it over and over, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's going to force us to think differently, not just as project managers, but just in general in
Business.
the workplace.
Yeah, 100%. So, and if you don't know artificial intelligence yet, know it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You get used
Chat
to
GPT, Bard,
Yep.
Bing,
And it's
Bing
a
AI.
consumer, and any of us as consumers can go get that technology and start messing around with it and learning it. And that's the beauty of it too.
Yeah.
So I guess just to sort of tie this all together, by the way, I was just thinking, I feel like this is probably the fastest hour interview
I'm
I've
like,
ever done.
I could go on.
I mean, I feel like we're about 10 minutes in. We're just getting started, but I look up and all of a sudden we're an hour in.
I know.
That's what happens when you're having fun.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess just to tie it all together, maybe help us understand how can we as PMs upskill, and maybe tell us a little bit more about your SLAY training as well.
So I have a firm belief, and this is from my efficiency background, of continuous improvement. I believe up until the last moment that I breathe, I can constantly look to improve on something. And so one of the things that I'm going to put out there is SLAY project management. So if you look up adrianagirdler.com, it'll bring you to a SLAY project management page. Even if you look at my corporate page, Cornerstone Dynamics, .com, SLAY will be there too, but it is a resource tool, practical project management tool that gives you all the templates, the frameworks, short bite videos on how to do things. It's 25% theory, 75% practical, based on PMI principles. And it's something where the techniques that I use myself, that get complimented on all the time. And it's not just about projects, it's about like the tasks, it's about the whole process and what to do, and stories and scenarios behind them as well, because a lot of the templates are templates you fill out, but they're techniques and tools as well that you pull out midway through projects for whatever reason, if a scenario pops up. So that's just something that I developed. What I'm proud of, it's lifetime access. We're constantly adding to it. It's a resource. So we're actually developing and doing some new additions to it. So those who are SLAY students right now, they get it. They always get it. Once you sign up for life. So I'm excited. I'm excited about that. So and I think you're going to put, the links under the video. It's adriana.com. My YouTube channel talks a lot about it as well. And if you go to the About section, you can see it there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kyler from our marketing team just dropped it in the LinkedIn stream, and we'll drop it in the YouTube and other streams as well. And by the way, if you're not, even if you just want to try out Adriana and maybe learn more about how she thinks and that sort of thing, just check out the YouTube channel. I mean, there's a lot of good free stuff there. And then, of course, if you like that, then the next step is to move towards the project management, the more formal course that she has. So if you like this energy level, why not bring it home with you, right? and bring it to your projects and bring it to your everyday application. So, well, I want to thank you, Adriana, for being here today. This was an awesome conversation. I loved it. So thank you for being here.
Great.
And
thank you.
And thank you to the audience too for the great questions. We had a ton of questions. I know there's a lot we didn't get to. We tried to get as many as we could, but thank you so much for the great questions. And if you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to share it with others too. Tag them in the comments below, or go ahead and forward the link to the recording on demand. And be sure to keep an eye out for this interview. It'll become part of our Transformation Ground Control podcast that comes out next week. We'll edit it, we'll polish it up, we'll add some more content to it, and the full formal episode will come out a week from tomorrow. Again, that's called Transformation Ground Control. So be sure to check us out. And we do this live production of a segment within that podcast every Tuesday, same time, same place. We stream to YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. So be sure to check us out there. So thank you, everyone, for being here today. Have a great week, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you again, Adriana. This was awesome.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. And thank you, audience. You guys were awesome and great engagement. So it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. Take care.